Yeah. Okay. This is not a long session, but I would like to use it to address the elephant in the room. No matter what side of the political aisle we find ourselves on, we are all aware that in an Aleph and Nun Beis, the Rebbe definitively shifted the focus of our shlichus. Let's not kid ourselves. No, how was Shabbos?
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. How was it by you?
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem.
Your recent talk on the Kinus HaShluchim was very, 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 very inspiring, mind-blowing even. It was something, it was a breath of fresh air to hear, especially addressing it in that sort of way where, like, let's address the elephant in the room. There's just something about that just, like, opens up the conversation in ways that we don't sometimes see it done before. And in my personal feeling, it was way, way overdue. In contrast to just kind of going on in life as a Chabad Lubavitch Chassid, Shliach, and going on another day and another day. It's important to sometimes stop and say, hello, what's the story? Let's address this for what it is. What brought you to bring up that, describing it in that way? Like, let's address the elephant in the room. Why is it really an elephant in the room? What do you think?
The truth is, it's an elephant in the room because, nothing that I was going to say was going to be something that was going to be new. Everybody is aware of the kach, the bren, the absolute immediate need. It's not too long ago that Chav Ches Nissen and everybody reminded themselves of the sicha that, in a sense, made everybody sit up and take notice. But the problem is that it is something that, to a certain degree, the Rebbe from the get-go was presenting a radical shift and change to what life is. And so that was obviously going to push everybody, push all of us out of our comfort zone, as it did, and to a certain degree, that's the entire point. But there's multiple ways we deal with discomfort. We deal with discomfort by brushing it aside entirely and just saying, I don't want to hear about it, I don't want to think about it. No, I'm going to continue walking, and I'm not going to notice that the sneh is burning and it's not there. There's the other end of the equation, which is that we say, okay, and this is uncomfortable, but das genemen zu the marbet, and we have to get it done. The caravel taint, and where I think the majority of us fall is somewhere in the middle, and there's various shades of that, which is that we responded, but perhaps not to the fullest of our potential on the matter, and so we moved because we are chassidim of the Rebbe and we are mekusharim, and so when the Rebbe demands of us metut, look, the amount of Moshiach that we have incorporated in the conversation, we have talked about, etc., has been so obvious that the rest of the world looks at Lubavitch already as if we're the Moshiach Meshagayim, which is a good thing.
You think? Yeah.
Is it a good thing that we were willing to go that far out of our comfort zone? The answer is, of course, it is. But the sense is that we have now, to a certain degree, become comfortable in our discomfort. So we've allowed this to become, again, you know what? I am not speaking for everybody. There are some exceptional individuals on this, and again, in a very real way, each Shliach and each individual in their own way has made tremendous progress and steps in this. And at the end of the day, we are the Rebbe's Chassidim, as I mentioned. But I think, especially in light of the fact that right now the Welt treiselt sich, it's a Shas HaKosher, to ask ourselves in this treiseldike Zeit, can we treisel a little bit more and shake ourselves out of our complacency and our comfort at being uncomfortable with the concept of Moshiach? In other words, challenge ourselves on the fact that Moshiach has to be one of these uncomfortable things, that even if I do it with a sense of emunah, that when to a certain degree, there's an established track record here. It was one of the main points I was trying to put forward in that talk, was it only is uncomfortable in the sense that the Rebbe is asking us to stay on the cutting edge, but not to do something that's be'etzem meshuggah, fakert. The Rebbe is the Nasi Hadar, is a Rai and knows exactly who the Welt halt and what the world is really capable to be makabel, and is actually desiring and craving to be makabel. And we need to be the leaders. Now, the leaders means that we're at the cutting edge. We're not the Meshuggahim, we're the leaders.
Right.
And
right.
Mifza Tfilin, and Mifza Mizuzah, Mifza Kashrus, and taking Yiddishkeit out to the street, and Bechlal engagement. Right now, we get to sit there and bask in the sense that
it is normal. Yeah.
Ahead of the game. Not in Meshuggah territory, but ahead of the game. Right. The same thing is true about Mashiach.
Maybe people don't. And I'm saying it could be people don't realize enough how much this was true also when Mivtza Tefillin came out. Does that make sense? Like going out in the street, asking a random person, are you Jewish? Hey, would you like to put on tefillin? Back then sounded as beyond normal and as out of the box and as strange and maybe even borderline Meshuggah as it could get for back in, when was it, the 60s, 70s? Is that true?
Well, it was and it wasn't. Very quickly, the Shlochim was haben sich genommen zu dem Arbeit, realized the immediate hatzlacha that they were seeing. And the ones that persisted to call them Meshuggah were the ones who were being left behind. It's only now that the results are in, the statistics are so obvious that nobody can deny it anymore. And now it's easy. Now Fakert, now Chabad has become the establishment.
Is it possible
that we should be? The establishment's in the middle of the pack. We don't want to be in the establishment space. We want to be at the cutting edge. Not because as a strategic thing, because that's where the leaders stand. And the Rebbe is the Nasi Hadar, and we are his Ansari Alafim and Ansari Meis, and we need to be at the leadership position. We need to be at leading, which means we're at the forefront. And Mashiach is not in the category of wild, it's in the category of exactly what the world needs right now, and we need to be leading them. And so what we have to challenge ourselves is to stop looking at this as an uncomfortable thing that I'm going to do with the Namunah and with the Kabbalah's Earl, and really shift our mindset and say, no, this is actually exactly what the world needs, and we need to lead. And that actually gives us a bigger achrayas to do it b'ofen hamiskabel. Because it's our achrayas to find the right words to present it to every single person and show them that this is exactly what they're missing and they're lacking. So it's not like if it was an Indian of Emunah, and we're not Kaliner Chassidim, we're not rolling around in the snow and putting on a zupitza in the summer and saying feig to the Welt. This is the Alter Rebbe said that Shitas Chabad is not to brechen the Welt, but it's to lead the world, to show the world be'etzem what they're missing. So it is so the Oidus to Toyu Bekelim to Tikkun is not a stira. It's actually the only way to do it. And so we have to challenge ourselves, and that's why they use all the creativity. Chabad has such a tremendous amount of creative tools. Again, the whole world is playing catch up. So we have all these incredible tools at our disposal, and we could do this. We could do this. We have to stop being uncomfortable about it.
Right. What has been what has been your experience? Let's take like maybe a few steps back in the years, a little bit of our previous history. What has been your experience, I guess, growing up and learning and finding out about this whole topic? For example, let me share my own experience a little bit, and I'd be very, very curious to hear yours. I sometimes find maybe it's useful to describe it in the modern day way of thinking of like having gone through a difficult trauma and now needing to go through therapy. Nowadays, everything is surrounding around that kind of narrative, things that people have gone through before, which is now causing them anxieties, and they go to therapy for it. So here has been my experience. In the beginning, there was no trauma. There was it seemed to be a very exciting thing that was progressively getting more and more clear in Lubavitch, which is that the Rebbe was telling us that Ot kommt Moshiach, the time is coming, here it comes, it's almost here, it's here, should have been here already, what's the story? Maybe one last thing, who can figure out what's the last thing? I'm giving it over to you guys, you put your heads together, come up with ideas, what we can do to make it happen, etc., etc. And then maybe the traumas, so to speak, started hitting, Chav Zayin Adar, and the second Chav Zayin Adar, and eventually Gimel Tammuz, and also the following traumas that came after that, in a sense, which is Lubavitch kind of getting back on our feet and figuring out what to do here, what to do now. Because after those big events of back then, some of us really felt very, very, confused, not to mention extremely sad, extremely like we don't know what to do now. It's very difficult. It's very hard. When we see our leader and he's leading us on and on, then everything is clear and great. And if we don't see him anymore, what's the story? Where do we go? And then also the differences of opinion of how to explain what happened and what did happen and what didn't happen. And everyone has their way of explaining it. And especially since it was something that touched us so closely and so deep in our hearts, it was really very difficult to kind of have a nice, friendly, respectful discussion about it at all times. When they're speaking about, what felt like our own father. You're saying this, you're saying that, how could you say it's this, how could you say it's that? And to some extent, the experience that I've had is that it became something that has to be an argument, it has to be a machlokes. It's almost like we're conditioned for this now. When it comes to these topics, when it comes to these issues, there's a disagreement. Oh yeah, there's a big politics about it. There's a big controversy about it. And you're either on this side or you're on that side. And it's either, it's us versus them, and we don't like them and they don't like us, and we don't agree with them and they don't agree with us. And this kind of tribalism almost, like judgmentalism going one way and the other way. The kind of thing that you wouldn't really associate, first of all, B'chlal Hasidim of Hasidei Baal Shem Tov, where the whole point is to have Avos Yisrael until the end. But particularly with the Shita of Chabad, the Rebbe's Shita, where when we go out and we see a Yid in the world, we don't point out to him how they're wrong and how something's not correct and how they're going to go to Gehenna or whatever. We accept them, we tolerate them, we give them a smile, and we try to encourage them to do something better, to put on tefillin, right? That's our attitude on Mitzayim. But for some reason, between ourselves, in the family, between Chassidim, it seems as if it became some sort of very contentious point where we don't accept you and you don't accept us about something. And that's how, for me, this became like an uncomfortable topic. Sometimes it felt even like, on the one hand, it's so important, this topic that the Rebbe was talking about, and the Rebbe was encouraging us to go and make it happen and do it and bring it to the world. But on the other hand, why bother go there? It's so uncomfortable. It brings up such sour tastes in people's mouth. It's controversial. It's uncomfortable. Maybe it's easier not to even talk about it. This is how I've had the experience of it becoming an elephant in the room that was rather shoved under the rug than brought out into the open. And which is why this is so amazing to hear, an idea of like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's bring this out into the open and deal with it for what it is. But yeah, share with me what has been your experience about this, or if maybe I got the wrong picture all along. Maybe this was actually peaches and cream all along. You tell me.
So I'll tell you, very clearly, this is not my forte. Why? Nobody dubbed me the Chabad psychotherapist, and more importantly, I think in all this discussion we can't lose sight about credit where credit is due. I was having a very fascinating conversation with my father a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how if you go and you see the Kinnus HaShluchim, or you walk into 770, so really across the spectrum, Bachrim in Yeshiva in 770 or the Naya batch of Shluchim, the Bachrim that are right now becoming Shluchim were born after Gimel Tammuz. The Bachrim in the Yeshiva are born long after Gimel Tammuz. By long, I mean in an era, to a certain degree, where the dust has settled in this new situation. And I asked my father, would you agree with this point? Because again, he was Dr. Bacher and went on Shliach. Before Gimel Tammuz, he would write in to the Rebbe about various pull-ups, then he would have a Chuas Chen Askel and Tziyah. And I asked my father, I said, to me it seems, and I would like to hear from you, that the level of his kashrus, the level of Mesidus Nefesh, the level of commitment to Shlichus, the Farbrengens, the Sprach of the Mashpiyim and the Bachrim and the Heintige Farbrengens, it's hard to see a tangible difference between the era of Faran Gimel Tammuz and the era of Nachal Gimel Tammuz. And he sat back and he thought about it a little bit. And he says, you know what? That's an incredible point. It's an incredible point. And it speaks to number one, and number two, that the hiskashrus and the commitment and the Mesidus Nefesh, etc., is alive and well. And the fact is that even though Gimel Tammuz happened, Shlichus continues with the Starkheit, with the Koch, with the Bren, with the Mesidus Nefesh to the Rebbe, with the Farbrengens and the Shavas Achim Kam Yochad, and of course you will have Sichsuchim and you have issues, and unfortunately that's because we're human beings and we have egos and we have politics and mises, etc. And those things are going to be manifest. If we didn't have this, we would have that. We would find ways, unfortunately. But again, my role is not to psychoanalyze why, where, and when. And honestly, nobody asked me when I was giving my thoughts over to address the issue in the issues in the Lubavitch. I actually operate, I don't know, in a place where shulchim or whatever many have varied viewpoints, but everybody is working towards the same goal. I think perhaps what we were missing or what we were dealing with is that because the effort to have Moshiach become part of what we were doing was and the absolute investment of it was relatively new. By the time Gimel Tammuz happened, it was a hard thing to fall back on. When we kind of got back into our routines were the things that we had perfected, and not because so much people were running away from Moshiach as I think the average shliach was not all worked up into the politics. I think the average shliach, they were too busy on the shlichus, but the politics of it was not a focus. It was, but to a certain degree, and part of what, in a sense, my call to action was, like everything else, when JLI was introduced to Shluchim, all of a sudden they had shiurim. I remember when Soul Maps came up. Soul Maps was the first JLI class I gave. It was on Tanya. And to a certain degree, I was learning Tanya for the first time. And so kudos to Rabbi Shei Staub, because when you learn Tanya as part of chitas and tag teglich, and so sometimes you're half sleeping, and the last time you learned it comprehensively was in, Yeshiva Tana. Here was an opportunity. You had to be, you had to learn Tanya to give the Sibir, and he was so clear. And realized that to a certain degree, sometimes it's a lack of material. It's a lack of, I don't have Clarkite in this, so I don't feel I can address this or tackle this. And this is, in a sense, a call to action. Let's put this back as a subject on the table. That let's get everybody's input, the best minds on this, and from the positive feedback, from the overwhelmingly positive feedback, I was totally not expecting it. I put it out there, this video, because I said, this has been a kach of mine for a while, that Moshiach has to become part of the Tag Teglech of the Shluchim in a comprehensive sense. And again, there are many Shluchim that do it, but I know about my immediate surrounding that myself, this needs to become more. So I was putting out, if we're already tracelings, if we're already thinking about things that we can really rethink and amp up and etc., then chevra, we know what the elephant in the room is more about how important Mashiach is to the Rebbe, and how this has to get all our focus and all our attention. Less the focus on whether it's how much has been missing till now, but more about how much we all know that this is the Tzav Hashor of the Rebbe.
Right.
And so we need to ramp this up, and we need to put our best minds and our best efforts into. Now, I was talking to the Shluch. Is this true for every single Lubavitcher, every single Yid? 100%. 100%. This goes across the board. And again, nobody was memana me, and I'm not in any way feel that I have a responsibility to become Lubavitch's what's it called on this. I am one Shliach who was trying to memorize it in. And why I'm saying that, because I don't know if my approach or my attitude is right. Maybe the Mashvi will turn to me and tell me I'm off the mark, and can sicher sein that I'm coming at this from the wrong angle.
Let me ask you, what would be your explanation, or how would you, the way you currently see it, unless Mashviim come and explain you otherwise? I myself have tried to discuss this with various Chassidim and people around town. I live in Crown Heights, but also, relatives and contacts around the world. And I try to bring up this concept sometimes. And, sometimes people find that it makes sense. It hits a certain mark. It's inspiring. It's interesting, the things that are going on in the world now, and how, who knows, maybe this is a way how we see something can affect the whole world in very quickly, and like you explained in your second video clip, very, very inspiring. And that this is maybe some sort of sign, and we should wake up, we should heed the calling and wake up about it. And what do you suggest, what do you think is the answer when sometimes I speak with certain people and they tell me, oh, this is a happening that happened in the world, don't get so Moshiach excited about it. It's a thing that happens, and it happens every 100 years. It happened in the 1900s, it happened in the 1800s, and life is going to go back to normal. You Hasidim always get so enthusiastic about this, or even within fellow Hasidim themselves. Some people tell me, there you go again with the emphasis on the whole Moshiach thing. If you calculate the whole total of all the content that the Rebbe has taught us over the years, you'll see that the Moshiach topic is only this percent or only that much percent in comparison. There isn't any particular focus on that topic per se. Don't make such a big deal about that. And I don't want to get into controversy or disagreement or whatever. I'm wondering how can we explain, and obviously tread carefully so as not to push anyone or overstep anyone, because the last thing we need is to get back into arguments or disagreements. But if someone feels like there isn't necessarily such a big focus about this per se, what do you think is the right explanation or response to that or whatever?
So as I shared in the second video, if there was one thing I would emphasize, A, to fellow Lubavitchers, and B, to fellow Yidden, from Yidden, C, to fellow not from Yidden, is we have to stop looking at Moshiach as this radical idea where we only see Moshiach in the radical events. Oh, coronavirus, Moshiach. What we are doing is we are taking the concept of Moshiach and we are accepting that it's radical. When fakert, it's not radical at all. At all. It's actually very, in my opinion, very simple. Not very simple, but very logical. And we owe this topic the due diligence and the respect and focus that it deserves. And what I mean by that is that each and every one of us needs, as with anything that we present, to do our own research, have a klarkeit on the Indian, so that we can be relatively sure and well versed on the subject matter, which means that every single one of us first has an achrayus to incorporate Inyonei Geulah Mashiach, the study of Inyonei Geulah Mashiach, comprehensively as Yidden, as Shluchim, as the Lubavitcher Chassidim, as simply as Yidden. The Rambam put it in the Yud Gimel Ikrim, not because it's a nice aspirational hope, but because you cannot be the Yud Gimel Ikrim means that without the firm understanding and the firm belief in this, you are failing in your emunah as a Yid. This is not a Zaytik Zach. The same list that includes Ani Mami Emunah Shaberi Zbarach Shmai, who that about our belief about Eibishter is also the belief about Moshiach. It's that intrinsic to Yiddishkeit. And how is it so? And to a certain degree, when you present it this way, as I mentioned in the video, I live in a place where people very much pride themselves on their understanding and their logic and their thinking and their education and their mental acumen. This is Bethesda's very educated city. And I don't shy away from this. And I present it as follows. I say, we as Yidden believe that God created the world, which means there is what they call a intelligent design. The world did not come about by accident. The world came about on purpose. The Creator created the world. Well, if He created the world on purpose, it means He created the world for purpose, which means that there's a point A, which is the creation of the world, and it's heading to a point B, towards its purpose. What's that point B? What's the end game? What's the goal? In Yiddishkeit, we call this the era of Moshiach. And you don't have to look in radical Sfarim. We say, the Eibusher had in mind Moshiach from the get-go. From the get-go. And again, this is not from some Chassidish Sfarim. This is what the Rambam's alluding to, that the Bethesda created the world for a reason, and that culminates with Moshiach. Now, beyond Yidden that are well versed in Yiddishkeit, you explain to down-to-earth people that if this world was created for purpose, on purpose, was created for a purpose, that makes sense. That makes sense. We're trying to get somewhere, right? Every single person in their own lives every once in a while stops and asks himself, what am I trying to achieve? What are my goals? Where am I going? What are the ideals that I'm working toward? So is it such a radical and far-fetched idea that the whole world has a goal, has an end game, or does that make sense? And then to a certain degree, it would then make sense that the creator of this effort, of this enterprise, this world, would have left the instruction manual. That's called Torah. And Torah gives us the instruction manual about how to move the world in its effort, in its progress towards its goal.
So here's a question. Maybe it's not that radical to believe that God created the world and we have a goal that we're working towards, and he gave us, the Torah with the instructions of how to get there. That's maybe not that radical. Let's call that's permitted. That's allowed to believe that and to still be regarded as a normal, acceptable person. But maybe where some people might start feeling uncomfortable or as if it's getting radical is to start believing, like checking the door, oh, is he coming now? As if like it's something that's realistic now, like within 24 hours, 48 hours, something is going to knock at the door and it's going to happen now. Moshiach is this kind of thing where like, ani mamin, you believe it every day, and you're supposed to continue believing it every day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, so to speak. This idea of like, it's about to happen now, and it's happening now, and so get ready and prepare your suitcases, and like it's something that's about to really happen. That's maybe what makes some people feel like, no, it's not supposed to come out of the realm of fantasy, imagination, and something that maybe can happen one day in the future, who knows, and bringing it into like, it's about to happen realistically now in our times, in our days. Who says we can take that out from there to here? And even if you'll tell me, okay, you know what, it seems like this is the kind of narrative, this is the kind of idea that the Rebbe himself seemed to be telling us when it was coming to those years, 89, 90, 91, 92. It seemed like the Rebbe was speaking like, wow, there are things happening in the world. It seems like the world is coming to a head. It's coming to a time where it's the time of Moshiach. Let's get ready, prepare yourselves. Here he comes, here he comes. But maybe that was like an opportunity. Maybe it was a good time that it could have happened, should have happened, would have happened. But let's be real here. Realistically speaking, evidently, maybe it just didn't happen. And here we are these many years later. And in a way, with every additional day that passes, with every additional year that passes, it kind of proves the point even stronger that, like, relax now, calm down for now. It was supposed to happen back then, and for whatever reasons, it didn't happen. Now, let's get back to normal. Let's settle down in life. Moshiach is something which could and will happen some point. We believe it strongly. So what's all this talk about getting all like radical as if like it's really realistic to happen now? Do you, Rabbi Sandy Geisinsky, do you believe that Moshiach might walk in right now as we speak, tomorrow, after tomorrow? What kind of radical speak is this? What do you think?
Again, so that's the point. Why radical? Why radical? Why does this have to be a radical thought? It is my firm belief and desire that any moment now, Mashiach comes through the door. Or
Really?
Mashiach. Now, why is that radical? Because we decided that the way we're living right now, that's going to be perpetually what carries on. And who says that's not out of place and radical? Well, let's look at it. First of all, if we're already starting, and depending who we're talking about, which type of Jew we're talking to here, type of Jew that believes that everything that says in the Torah is correct, and more their question is, who says now? Fine, I believe Mashiach, but who says now? Okay, so let's talk to that Yid for a second. First of all, if you're from Yid and you look, you'll notice that the Rambam in his Ani Mamin uses a lashon in the 12th Ani Mamin that he does not use a lashon in any other Ani Mamin. And he says he could have just sufficed with Ani Mamin b'Emunah Shalema v'Vias Mashiach, but he did not. The Rambam did not suffice. He said, And this is not only reflected in the ikar of the Rambam, it's in our davening. That kol yom, kol hayom. So if you're a from Yid, then the question's on you, not on me. Now, if you're having a problem getting there, so let's both try and figure out how to get our minds in the right place. But what's the chiyuv? The chiyuv is pretty clear and obvious. Now, to the same Yid, still talking to this Yid, Moshiach has to come at one point or another, right? At one point in history, we're going to be on that threshold. We're going to be at that point where Atat is Moshiach. Now, why can't that be this moment? What is your raya that it can't be? And if anything, you start looking at things, and now you can already start opening the conversation up to other people that are not sold on Yiddishkeit and everything else. You look at the world, and if you can't see in the world certain incredible changes, many of them which the Rebbe pointed out, and recognize that there is some unbelievable, radical, if you want to call it that way, developments that would be, to a certain degree, the perfect fruition of the various ideas that Yiddishkeit has foreseen in the lead up to Mashiach, then somebody's not pointing them out to you, but they're there. They're there. You want to say this is the worst time that we've ever been, and really, then you're experiencing what we call recency bias, which means you've only got a very small scope of vision, and you're looking at things that are so terrible, so bad. Oh, really? This is what I tell people in Arki, again, people that want more empirical proof. There, the Yiddishkeit angle of it is, but they say, looking at the world, I said, let's look at world history. If I asked you, somebody who is a student of history, somebody who's of world history, I said, name for me 5 names of ancient history, 5 figures, great figures that you study. So say Napoleon Bonaparte, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, etc. You know what all these people have in common? Their greatness is in the fact that they were bloodthirsty conquerors. And back in the day, that was not only lauded, it was actually expected. If you were a weak nation alongside a stronger nation, it was only going to be a matter of time before they invaded and they took you over. And almost you had to you didn't even have Faribel. It was just, that's the way it goes. The Persians rule until the Greeks get more powerful, and then the Greeks come and take over the Persians, and they rule until the Romans come around, and they're as they get developed. Look at the world now. Look how radically changed it is. And I was giving the example of Haiti, right? Haiti was a very poor country, hit by a terrible earthquake and tsunami, and the country was on its knees. And immediately massive warships came from the great world powers from all over the world, the United States, from Europe, etc., etc. Had this been any other era in history, what would these warships be coming to do? To exploit and take over a weak country, and it would have been in a minute, and all the resources and all the people would be enslaved. What was different now? What's different now is that these warships were coming to establish field hospitals and provide water and bandages, etc. And that was expected. When in history did you have this, where all the nations, all the most powerful nations in the world were working together, the Man HaSholem? Now, of course, there's quibbles, and of course, there's arguments and fights, etc. But if you take a broader span of history, the whole world has shifted dramatically. And why? Who taught them this? Who taught them to think this way? Who was the shining light that taught the world these values? Well, the UN, which is the ostensible bureau of all this effort, has the certain words etched into its building which is its mission statement. And these are the words of the Jewish prophet about what will be in the times of Moshiach. And here you have the building that is officially directing the entire mentality of, or the entire effort. Do they do a good job or not is a different discussion. But what do they set as ostensibly their mission statement? Their goal is to bring to the era that the Jewish prophet and all the countries in the world officially buy into this. In other words, the rest of the world is, to a certain degree, saying, we agree that our mission statement is to bring the world toward this era that the Jewish people call Moshiach. So again, whether we're perfect at it or not, you want to not say and look around and say something very different is happening in the world than was once upon a time happening. And the fact that instantaneously information, something I speak right now, is on the other side of the world in a moment, in literally instantaneous. And then if you want to look at the coronavirus, as I said in the video, if I told anybody middle of February that very soon everybody will be at home with their family, basically not working, spending quality time with their wives and their children, checking in with the office maybe virtually, but being on the roof with family, and they would say, "What? The whole world? You mean the whole world will be doing this?" Yeah, the whole world. How soon do you mean? Like when? When do you expect this? Oh, in about 15 days. They were crazy. Boom, here we are. Now, if this happened because of something negative, then is it not? But it happened. So is it so radical to believe? And when I have non-religious balabatim tell me that, Rabbi, if this is not Mashiach, if this is, the world is a lot more ready for clarity on this subject than I think we give the world credit for. And that was my main point. My main point was, let's take a moment and let's see how the Rebbe was right again. That the world is a lot more ready for this. This should not take a sense of emunah on our part, or a sense of iskashrus to go out of our comfort zone. And the Rebbe has already established a track record of knowing exactly what the Derd needs and exactly what the Derd is ready for. And the Rebbe told us clear that we need to treat this with the proper attention and respect it deserves. So we need to give this down to earth and clear, thought out. We can't just bomb and say, no, we need to give this, we need to be as the Kalim de Tikkun, but it does not mean we need to shy away from the topic. It means we need to find the words to clearly and comprehensively point out that really what the whole world is looking for. And I mentioned the other aspect. Do you ever hear the world is constantly talking about social change and social justice? The words are there. The Olam knows that something is happening. But because there's nobody giving them the clear direction, so then they're making it up. It's about recycling water bottles. But just like the Rebbe says, that the Olam will, and we have to give them what their neshamas are looking for. It's the same thing on the concept of Moshiach. So is the world clearly ready? I think the question is on those that don't see it.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty interesting take on it. Again, I guess, what about the part where people might say, like, okay, maybe in Nun Aleph, Nun Beis, maybe there was like an opportunity, and now here we are 25, 28, almost 30 years after that. So how come we haven't woken up about this 10 years ago, 15 years ago? And who says now is like, is there really still an outstanding mission that's still like waiting to be completed, where the Rebbe tells us, guys, go and implement this concept of Moshiach into the world so that it becomes a reality. Was that maybe something that it worked out as much as it worked out back then, but now here we are? Who says that's something that we need to go back to and like do it now and do it more and do it better and make it really happen? Well, why reawaken that? Who says that's really something that we need to reawaken? Maybe it is what it is. And now go be a good shliach, be a good yid, go put on tefillin with yid and teach them Tanya. That will probably bring Mashiach much sooner. Just tell people to give tzedakah every day and to put on tefillin and to keep Shabbos, learn some Torah with them. That's worthwhile, teaching and telling people about. Discussing this whole Mashiach thing, leave that for Hashem will one day bring Mashiach. Don't worry about it. The Rebbe will bring it. The Eibishter will bring it. It'll happen. Why do we have to wake this up now?
Okay, so you actually started with one question and you shifted to another question. Okay. The question was about, was Atat, and now it seems it wasn't Atat, and the second question was, do we have to talk about it? So we talked about it. We already addressed it. Yes, we have to talk about it. Yes. Concerned that, wait a minute, is this really the time, etc. It seems to be there was the time and then there was Atat, but now it's decades later. To that question, like everything, any point or any crossroads, any uncertainty, we have a Teda. And in the Teda is a Teda Nitzchis, Teda Meloshen Heda, and in the Teda is the lesson for us. And interesting that Shabbos Gimel Amos is always close to Parsha Shliach, in which the Meraglim made the mistake of asking the wrong question. They thought they were supposed to ask questions. Right, it would be the Bethesda Sikha of the Rebbe, or more than one Sikha of the Rebbe. They were not supposed to ask, is this really the time? Are we supposed to actually do this? Is this the time we're supposed to go in? Are we ready for it? Not ready for it? That's the wrong question. Why? Because Abish just said we're ready for it. The question is, how do we prepare? So you're asking me, the Rebbe said that Atat, that's all I need. In that, there's a certain amount of emunah. Things seem to have changed. I'm a soldier. I don't look at that. That's not on my plate. I have to condition myself. That's not if I'm asking that question, where do I have the time to be stepping outside and analyzing this? I have work to do. I have to be preparing myself for Moshiach, and by doing mitzvahs behider, by growing in my aveda imatzmi, my own learning and my own davening, and my chinuch of my children and their learning and their davening, all with the sense that I need to be preparing myself and them through these mitzvahs to be Mekabel B'nai Moshiach. And I'm too busy working on and thinking of ways and strategizing ways how to get it done. These philosophical questions about better time work, that was a moral mistake. That's not for us to be asking. The Nasi Hader told us art. So what do we do? What are the questions we're supposed to be asking? How to get it done? End of story. Not when, art. And the Rebbe, like the Rebbe told us, when you're waiting for somebody to come to the room, and they don't come, and a minute goes by, an hour goes, what that should end up doing, if you really, really, really have a strong immunity that they're coming, then what ends up happening is that your anticipation grows. If you have a doubt whether it's true that they're coming, then the longer time that goes by, that ends up growing the doubt. But if by dir felt nicht, you don't have a doubt that they're coming, and you don't have a doubt in the truth that they're coming, then the anticipation, every minute that goes by and it doesn't come, the anticipation gets greater.
Tell me if this is a true concept or not. This is how sometimes it made sense to me. I don't know if it's true or not, but this question about why now, and it's been 25, almost 30 years, and why should we get back on track with that now or whatever, sometimes by me it feels like that is really a rhetorical question that gets right back to us. We can answer that issue. We can answer that question. In a sense, it is a little bit looking back and saying, we coulda, shoulda gotten back to this earlier. Now the question is 25, 28 years stronger. So if anything, we should really roll up our sleeves now and try to answer that question ASAP, because it really is still outstanding. It really is something that the Rebbe says is happening, should happen, we can make it happen, and it's still in that status. And if anything, we should be telling ourselves, okay, good question, why should we wake up now and do it? We should have woken up long ago and done it. So at least now, for sure, we should wake up and do it. Does that make sense? I don't know if that.
If the question is, should we get active and do it? Then the answer is, of course. If the question is, what's going on here? It's been 25 years. Again, I reject the question as not a question that's supposed to be occupying our mind space. Because what are you asking? That is the Rambam right in saying is the Rebbe right in saying Moshiach?
Is it an elephant in the room that we're allowed to ask? Like, let's say, can someone innocently ask? The Rebbe said
The answer is Parsha Shlach tells you no. Stop asking that question. Not because is it a valid question or an invalid question is not important. It's not part of it's immaterial, as we say. Because we're supposed to be occupied with other questions. And the other questions we're supposed to be asking ourselves is how to get it done. There's the famous story about Napoleon Bonaparte and the Tsar, right? It never happened, but it's a nice anecdote. It says when the Tsar beat Napoleon, so they were meeting wherever they're meeting for the signing of the peace treaty, and Napoleon turns to the Tsar and says, "How did you win? My soldiers are better trained. I'm a better general. We have better weaponry. So how did you win?" And he says, "Because I have the real soldiers." The Tsar says, loyal, unquestioning, ones that got the job done. Napoleon says, "I disagree. My soldiers are the most loyal. They're committed. They'll do anything for me." And I said, "Okay, let's put it to the test." So they go to the roof of the tower, and Napoleon calls over his soldier to illustrate the level of commitment. He says, "Jean-Pierre, come here." Jean-Pierre comes. He says, "I want you to jump off this building. And the drop, you will not survive the drop. Your life will end here and now when you jump off the building." And Jean-Pierre says, "I have anything for you, cher général. I will do it. I just have one question. As I'm going to, that you can answer so that as I jump to my death, I can know. How am I serving the purpose? What am I doing?" To which Napoleon said, "By doing so, you're demonstrating the loyalty." Says, "Oh, that's all I needed to hear." He runs and he jumps off. And he turns to the Tsar and he says, the Tsar with a smile says, "Ivan," calls over a soldier. "So I want you to jump off this building." Ivan says, "Right away. I have one question. Which side?" The point is not that we're expected to have blind faith. And don't ask questions. Stop asking questions. No, but we're too busy asking the right questions. We're the Rebbe's soldiers. We are the Eibishter's soldiers, which means we'll leave the questions about how it could be done, or is it the right time and can it be done? We'll leave that to the general, to the commander-in-chief. We as Hasidim, when the Rebbe says, "Atot Moshiach," and go prepare the world, there should be one question we ask ourselves. How is the best way to get it done? And those other questions, that's Tachbulei Sayetzer. And very seriously, Tachbulei Sayetzer, because what it's allowing to do, the story of the Meraglim, or the story of the Egel Azav, these stories illustrate, this is why they're in the Torah, to illustrate that not all questions, even if they're rational questions, are correct questions. Why? Because you have a direction already. You were given the mission. Go out and do it. And your question should be how to best execute on it. So is it a valid question? Yeah, probably it's a valid question. Here we are 25 years later. Is it the question me and you should be asking? No. We're supposed to be too busy with other questions. And the other questions we're supposed to be asking ourselves is how do we get this done? End of discussion.
So Lamaskana, we could say, based on the knowledge that you have, based on the research you've done, the sichos you've learned, you firmly believe that how we stand now, we could and should, and let's ask the question of how, and we got to go and do it, right? Let's say, in contrast to someone else who might say, there isn't necessarily currently an outstanding mission to do anything about the whole Moshiach situation. You, from what you understand, it seems to be you believe there is.
I don't think there's a Shliach on the planet that would say that there is no outstanding mission to bring Moshiach. I think every single Shliach, at least again, I'm talking to and about the Shliach. Everyone knows this, and that's why it's the elephant in the room. It's the elephant in the room because it's something we all know, not because it's something that there's still a debate about. It's something we all know. And it's something, the truth is, that we are committed to because we are, at the end of the day, shluchim and chassidim of the Rebbe that have devoted their life here, as I mentioned in the beginning, the newest crop of shluchim are after Gimel Tammuz, and yet they come with the same commitment and the same bren to be mekayim the ratzon of the Shliach and to see the job done. So I don't believe that deep down it's a question if it's the right thing or not. I think what gives people pause is how do we do it? And if it feels like I don't know, or it's then let me do the things that we're very good at, and there's a clear path, and there's good. And so my call to action was more chevra, let's nemzich to the marbit, and let's create so much resource on this subject that it's plug and play, that every single one of us can immediately infuse any given thing we're doing. If we're giving a shir, if we're talking to teens, and as I said in the second video, Shliach should not become a standalone. We should not be pushing aside everything else that we as shluchim are doing and take on Mitzvah Mashiach. It's not Mitzvah Mashiach to the exclusion of all others. Fakert. Like the Rebbe explains about Chassidus and Kuntres and Yonashal Teres Chassidus, it's not another layer. It's not like I can study Chassidus or I can study Pshat Remez Drushas and Seit. Chassidus is the core of Pshat Remez Drushas. So when I'm learning Pshat, I can learn Pshat with Chassidus, or Chassidus baleicht the Pshat. When I learn Remez, or when I learn Drush, etc. When I'm rapping somebody with tefillin, I can make it so much more relevant, so much more practical, so much more obvious. Why should I put on tefillin? Rabbi, why should I do this one mitzvah? Is it really going to change anything? We're going to say, yeah, you just recycled the bottle. Why did you recycle the bottle? You really thought that, you really think, well, the person will say, yes, because this bottle added to all the other bottles, and I do my part, and you do your part, and we'll all incrementally work to move the world towards a better place. That's why you're putting on tefillin, because we believe the world's heading on a trajectory, and kol mitzvah mitzvah. When you'll put on tefillin now, you'll light Shabbos candles now, or you are. So Mashiach is actually the connective tissue, is the core, everything, and it's not a hard idea. It actually makes shlichus more relevant, more immediate, more obvious, more resonant to everybody. It's not some random thing. I don't know if I believe it or not. It's if we're all heading somewhere together. We each have a responsibility to see that we get there. Go put on tefillin, and you took us one step closer to it. It's forward progress. And so we make Yiddishkeit more relevant, and we make Yiddishkeit from being something. You're not just doing tefillin because your grandparents, your great-grandparents, or the Holocaust, others. That's all in the past, and nowadays we're living in the future. You know how you take Torah mitzvahs and move it from just the element of the past, and you move it forward, looking into the future, by telling them that with it you're working towards Mashiach. If anything, again, imbuing Mashiach into our shlichus. And again, not just talking to Lubavitchers, not just talking to Shliach, because every Lubavitcher is a Shliach and every Yid is a Shliach. But if we get into that mindset, if we get really into that mindset, that the Moshiach is in the Galos Moshiach is Toliv Ma'isenu V'Avedisenu Kol Zman Meshech HaGolos, and the Nasi Hadoyer, who's the one whose job is to know these things, tells us we're standing at the goal line. And we now need that last push. Then let's bring it all to bear. And if anything, again, I have not found that it has been in a detriment. If anything, it's what I pull out when I really want to make the point that I'm saying particularly compelling.
Oh.
So what are we afraid of? Why is this radical? This is actually very, very practical and makes Yiddishkeit so much more immediate. And Beinenu, it makes it so much more geschmack. For not only for ourselves, but for others. We're all working together to get somewhere with this. We're all a team here. We're all working together.
The whole differences and the whole arguments, that's all an illusion, really. That's not really a thing.
Look, I'm not going to say it's an illusion, but what I'm saying is it's Kleinigkeiten.
Once we realize what the mission, what the joint idea is here.
Even before Gimel Tammuz, there was arguments and fights, but the power of the Nasi, power of every Nasi. Look, David HaMelech, there was constant strife. The power of the Nasi is to get all the disparate parts to look above the small stuff and to focus on what we're all trying to achieve together. And be'emes, in a very real way, there's a common denominator among all the factions. Everybody is trying to be Mekayim Ratzin and Mishalech. And the truth is, you can focus on what divides us, or Shmake Fabringen, an incredible Fabringen, a couple days before the kinnis in which this video that I originally put out. It was refreshing because it reminded everybody we're all on the same team, and it's not even like we're officially all on the same team. No, we actually really feel that way also about ourselves. Deep down, we feel that way about ourselves, and so we need to stop looking at the small stuff and remind ourselves of the big stuff. Another reason why Mashiach needs to be incorporated is it's an added value to incorporating Mashiach into our focus. Reminds us that all the rest of the stuff is really Kleinigkeit, and we are really doing an incredible job as Chassidim, as Yidden, etc. Here we are, all these years after Gimel Tammuz, and we're Chassidim. We're Chassidim of the Rebbe. And because as I know, from our own personal shiurim of Chitas and Rambam and Fabrengens and learning and the Sichas every day, etc., to the way we're raising our children, to the way we're committed to Shlichus, etc. And as long as we keep our minds on the big things, we're there. We're there. We don't even have to do any radical change. We just focus on the big stuff. The rest of the little, smaller stuff may not work out entirely. But will stop getting in the way as much.
Right, I agree. And I also appreciated how you, in that video, in that short little talk, you drove things very much to concrete, like, practicality. A lot of times it can be talk, and even this conversation right now, to some extent, could risks being maybe just talk. But at the end of the talk, you said, and therefore, if anyone has any ideas, it was almost like akin to what the Rebbe said in that Sikha of Chavches Nisan. We should put our heads together and come up, brainstorm with ideas. How can we do? What can we do to make it happen? You had an email address. What was it? MC at
Merkez 302.
Oh.
MC at Merkez302.com. In other words, and I'm happy you brought it back to this point, because that was always, if you think about, to me, one of the most amazing things about the Nasi Hadar, our Rebbe. And I hate to say it that way because it seems like I'm analyzing the grace kite of the Rebbe Chas v'Shalom, Chassid, but was, you have the Kinnas HaShulchan, an incredibly inspiring concept of taking the Shulchan from all over, bringing them together, these Eiros and the Shavas Achim, and how every Shliach walked away from the Kinnas Marpe L'Nefesh, etc. And the Mishalech was not satisfied with that. And the Rebbe wrote after the Duch, when the Duch comes in, he wrote back, V'habechein, question mark. And therefore, you can have a very inspiring moment, but what are you hitching it to? What is the practice and specific actions and resolutions and chalatas that are going to be taken? And to me, actually, that's what it ends up all being about. As I said, shluchim are not necessarily need a radical change of perspective in the sense that they're not ready for this, and that was proven by the fact that there was an immediate positive feedback. The shluchim are saying we are ready. Just there needs to be material, and this era nowadays with WhatsApp groups and whatever it is, everybody who has a thought can share it, and it can immediately. And again, I'm a Shliach Bethesda, Maryland. I was never asked to become or feel like I was a part of any think tank. Or I shared a thought. And the fact that I was asked at the Knesset is also just because somebody heard. But that's the way things are happening nowadays. It's happening that anybody who has a good idea, for example, and this is Yisrael, why we're talking. Who was Memana you? Nobody. What was Memana? Well, the Rebbe was. But what it is somebody saw something, a need for something. That's the attitude we all have to have. If you have an idea, you have to share it. This inyan of Miftzah Moshiach has to be treated with seriousness. And what that means is we need to be investing our best minds and creativity on this. If you have a good idea, then if you're holding it back, you're being Menei Abad. Not just Menei Abad to other Chevra, you're being Menei Abad to the whole world. So the bottom line is we each have to think, every idea, Rabbi Akiva did not send back any of the Eidim that were coming to do Kiddush HaChodesh, even though to a certain degree, somebody could say, "What I see in front of me, there's a whole line of people with ideas. Was my idea really going to matter?" Yeah, yes. The answer is because at all times, we all need to feel like that if I have an idea, I'm an achrayas to share. So the bottom line is yes, and to me, it starts first and foremost with each and every one of us being keveya, a more established time in their day to learn in Yoni Gul Moshiach. There's plenty of Sfarim nowadays, and if you don't want to say specifically on Yoni Moshiach, you want to learn the Rebbe Sichos, you want to just open up, but brush up on the topic. But more important, you're going to make it more real by you with a klarkeit. You have to be kivea itim in Yoni Gul Moshiach. Beyond that, we should be investing and imbuing in every aspect of that shluchim do so successfully in our adult education, our engagement with our teens, etc. So we need to be investing ideas into each one of these things, and that's part of the effort of, in a sense, this new vad. The new vad is going to be thinking along those lines. How can every single thing that already exists in Chabad does well, be done with Moshiach, but to every single one of us, we need to start with Torah, and Torah is Moshiach. In other words, we have to learn it comprehensively. It's our Leben mit der Zeit.
So it is actually a thing. Like, I've had conversations about this itself, and I'm kind of making a little bit of a pretense over here because my opinion is one thing, but the questions that I'm asking is sometimes a little bit playing the advocate, But what I'm asking is, I've had discussions where people perhaps propose that who says it's even a central concept that you have to focus on learning concepts of Mashiach specifically. Again, maybe this was something that was pertinent to those times, those years, but right now, so you're saying it's absolutely a thing. We need to brush up. We need to get fluent with the concepts.
Again, by the way that I saw, the ones that are living in the part of the world, the cohort of Chabad Hasidim that are living in the part of the world that is perhaps most furthest, in a sense, from the shluchim, the response, the immediate reaction from shluchim was Lamahed, good. And if anything, the only kind of pushback I got is you're not giving enough credit to shluchim that already are doing it. So forget. There's not what I did not hear from a single source, from not in all the feedback I got. You're missing the mark. You're off message. This is not one. It was either say you hit the nail on the head, or you're not giving enough credit to the shluchim that are already doing it. That's it. So the bottom line is, let's take that for what it is and say, then clearly this is on the minds of a lot more people than perhaps speak about it often at hate. And what we should be doing is we should be getting all the best ideas, and we should be using all the resources available to us to get those ideas out to all of us.
Yeah,
and then again, to start with learning.
100%, I agree. And so to finish off, just to wrap up, I hope that email address is getting filled up. I hope you're getting messages and people are sending in ideas, and if not, we'll repeat it again, mc@merkaz302.com. Please send in some thoughts, some ideas. What do you think we can do to make things happen and spread the word, come up with good concepts, programs, projects, anything we can do to spread the word more, to help others spread the word more. Just to share a little bit, I felt, this just could all be happening in my own head, but I felt, for example, that in my local town, in Crown Heights, the center, the headquarters of where it all starts, I felt like sometimes this topic, like we said in the beginning, could feel uncomfortable, and it's something that people perhaps prefer avoiding, or it's like, why go there if we don't have to? And I tried for the recent while coming up with ways of how can we make this topic back on the table, and like, it's okay to talk about Moshiach. It's okay to talk about the reality that's about to happen. Let's make the conversation comfortable again. Let's make Moshiach great again, whatever slogans we want to use. Hashtag yes we can. Like showing people, maybe it used to seem scary, or they used to seem like it was embroiled with controversy or arguments or whatever, but that was off the mark, if anything. The truth is that it is a thing. It's okay for it to be a thing. Let's focus on it, and let's make the conversation comfortable again. And I'm wondering if maybe there's any more things in that area that we can do more. Maybe we should do this conversation once in a while more often, and maybe we can involve more shluchim to get on this kind of discussion more often. Maybe we should do this like a kind of a talk show kind of a thing, where, you know, once in a while we invite a guest on board, and this shliach and that shliach, and we exchange these thoughts and ideas and questions and answers. Maybe everyone can send like a social clip of themselves, you know, doing a thing or explaining a little thought about how this thing in regular everyday life seems like it's connected to Moshiach or that or whatever. And let's wrap up with, yeah, you tell me, what are some practical ideas maybe that have either come in through the email or that you think people can think up or come up and start doing to kind of share and spread the word more?
So the answer is that we already started sharing some ideas. I think that in general, everything you said, you want to create a regular broadcast in which all the various guests, people that influence in the community. We know we nowadays have this musik of influencers.
Right.
And the effort is that certain people that with their pitch on any subject can move their immediate sviva. I think everybody has to feel that. But the point is, don't wait around. Why don't wait for this to become a thing? You make it a thing. Every person has the people that, and really this was perhaps the greatest uftu of the Rebbe, that the Rebbe said, don't wait for anybody to appoint you. If you know Aleph, teach Aleph. If you know Beis, teach Beis. And if there's people in your immediate sviva that you can be an influence on, then we need to talk about this. And if you're looking for resources, then again, Baruch Hashem, there is, and I in my own way will continue to do my part to put whatever it is out there. I know, for example, Rabbi Mendel Kaplan from Flamingo, and saw it as his responsibility. That again, was anybody memana him? No. But he said, if I have a certain amount of influence, if it become a shofar, and the people listen, then I'll do 70 video clips for 70 Shivim Shana. That's the point. We're each and every one of us has a chiyuv to contribute to this in whichever way. You want to do a puppet show and show people how the kids get on. If you want to be like Rabbi Goldstein over here, who decided that he's going to take the time to invest to treat this seriously enough, that he's going to work on podcasts, he's going to work on tabling Crown Heights like it's a college campus, and put himself out there, which again, as you said, is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. Side begashmi aside, emotionally and whatever it is. But did a VAD come together and say, Rabbi Goldstein, we decided you're the one that needs? No, but something needs to happen, and so Rabbi put himself out there, and that's the attitude. That's going to be the attitude, and to a certain degree, when you really take a moment and you think about it, it doesn't have to be that ticklish of a subject. So now it's more about, okay, if the subject is not that ticklish, and I have creativity in whatever way I have, so let me bring it to bear on this subject, and let me put out something and then share it, and then it becomes something that is available to everybody. Aleph Champ for the Hebrew schools was not that somebody was memaned this person to make a curriculum for Gans Lubavitch. Somebody was particularly creative, came up with a great way to teach Aleph Beis, and immediately when the Shulchan saw something good, it became adopted. And it became, Baruch Hashem, also a source of parnasa for him. The point being that we are living in an era where anybody who has a good idea and is willing to take the time to prepare it, to package it so that it is take. The oifen hamiskabel and in the kelim the tikkun, it's good. It's a chaticha really skabed. in no time whatsoever, it can get out there, and the whole olam can be can have a tremendous hana from it, and more importantly, it can move the needle. And that really is, again, something that the Rebbe saw decades before anybody else.
And you've been the Ato Hamaskim. You've absolutely demonstrated that within a short 12 minutes that they gave you to speak by the Kinus, you packaged a bombshell in a way that was very frank, very on the table, and I think really woke up something that was there and that people really resonated with people. And I hope we see more of you. You've started, in a sense, putting out videos, and I hope and I expect to see more of them. Maybe once a weekly thing, at least a little short vartayr or something that has to do with pertinent with the times, with the news, and obviously how it connects with Moshiach and all that. I really hope that I've heard nothing but positive feedback from anyone and everyone, and I've been sharing it around to anyone I could. I really hope you continue with that. And yeah, like you said, everyone with their own idea of what they're able to do should just go ahead and do it. We're waiting for it. There's no reason to wait around any further. We can make it happen. I can make it happen. You can make it happen. So it's just a matter of getting up and actually doing it. So yeah, Shliach, I appreciate your time talking with me this Motzei Shabbos, and I hope we do it some more. And yeah, we should already be interrupted right now with the immediate coming in of Moshiach through the door and telling us, guys, you figured it out. You were on target.
Well, and Hashem, and that's the point. We each gets them to the Mabit, Mitz Hashem. We'll get the job done, and when Mashiach comes through the door, you definitely want to be in that situation,
right,
where we have been, where he catches us in the act of doing our part.
That's it. You think we can, Rabbi Geisinsky? How do you think? Yes, we can. We can do it. We can make this happen.
Who cares what I think? The Rebbe did. The Rebbe does, and that's the most important thing. We can and we will, and that's it. So let's get it done.
And here we go. Yeah, and here we're gonna go. We're gonna do it. Let's do it. Shliach Reb Sender, appreciate it again. Agus Vach and Moshiach now.
Amen.
Moshiach
now.